Hey there, emerging expat. You're tuned in to Let's Move to Portugal. I'm Victoria from Expats Everywhere's podcast, and I have the distinct honor of bringing you, YouTube travelers, and our resident Portugal experts, Expats Everywhere's Josh and Kalie. Each week they'll inspire, they'll educate, and they'll accompany you on your journey to Portuguese residency. This week on Let's Move to Portugal, Anita shares the magic of a Portuguese Christmas, highlighting family, cultural etiquette, unique holiday traditions, and practical advice for expats.
Hey expats and travelers alike, welcome back to the Expats Everywhere presents Let's Move to Portugal podcast. Kalie, how you doing?
I'm doing well. We just got back from Lisbon for an overnight trip. I'm wearing my Arsenal jersey because we went and saw Arsenal and they beat Sporting, so that was really exciting. And then by the time you hear this, we'll already be back from our trip to Toulouse, but we are going to Toulouse this weekend, which is why we're recording this a few days early, so we can get that out to you. So I'm doing well. Lots of stuff going on. Holiday season. What about you?
Holiday season, for sure. Lights are going up everywhere. We actually just saw a friend's video on the Lisbon lighting ceremony. And then being there just yesterday, we were able to see some of the lights. But no, I mean, it looked like it was absolutely packed.
Super busy,
for that lighting ceremony. I was glad that I wasn't there, but it was beautiful looking.
It did look really pretty, but it was a lot of people. But Porto's will be the same. We went last year to Porto's. It's actually this coming weekend, and we'll be out of town. Josh booked that, not thinking. Our daughter's not super happy about it, missing that because we did it last year and it was fun. But it was busy last year, but I expect it to be much busier this year.
Yeah.
The past few years. I mean, our first year actually, because of COVID, they canceled it because it'd be too many people congregated, and we can definitely see why that would be a thing. So it's probably going to be busy in Porto as well this weekend.
Yeah, we are, but we're going to go visit one of the most underrated livable cities in France.
Yeah.
So fine, like Sia can deal with it.
Oh, I know.
She'll
be
never
fine.
know.
I'm sure that there will be lights there. So we will go Christmas light hunting because I'm a very big no Christmas anything until after Thanksgiving. So after that, we have a full month of full on Christmas music, which Josh hates.
But I mean, here's the thing: like Portugal doesn't care. Portugal doesn't do a Thanksgiving. And if you've been living in Portugal for a bit, if like let's say this is your first country that you've lived abroad, you've probably had family members ask you like, "How's Thanksgiving?
What do you do for Thanksgiving?
What do you do for Thanksgiving?"
Yeah.
They don't celebrate it here, so it's an awkward conversation that I think for the first 3 or 4 years that we had, at least with my family,
it wouldn't connect. But.
So to give you an indication of how this podcast runs, if you're new here, is we'd like to start out by letting you know how our week's been and what's been going on with us just after the lovely producer Victoria gives us an introduction and tells you what this podcast is about. And then we want to preview what happens actually in the main event of the podcast, which today we're talking with Anita, who is a Portuguese teacher, but someone that is going to be teaching us today more about Portuguese culture when it comes to how they celebrate Christmas. And we had an enlightening conversation, but more on that kind of
You'll get to that
in a bit.
Yeah. So that would be interesting because obviously she teaches Portuguese, the language, but it's always fun to hear from someone in the country that you're living in or that you're interested in what their holidays are like. How do they celebrate culturally? What's interesting? What's normal? What's a taboo, I guess. Yeah. It's always good to know. I remember
it's good to be prepared.
Be prepared, yeah. I remember having someone a couple years ago ask me what a good graduation present for a boy was here in Portugal because they were invited to like a graduation party. And I was like, oh, good question. It's little things you don't think of, like what is a normal type gift? What's okay? Or what's something that you don't do? Or recently, unfortunately, we have found out kind of how, like what you give, what kind of flowers you give to someone who has had a family member pass away.
Yes.
You know, so learning those little things like what color is acceptable or what kind of note. So these are all really good things to know when you move to a different country.
And we also learned that it was like Uber Eats or whatever that did delivery.
Oh yeah, so Uber Eats does, does flowers.
It was Uber Eats,
Uber
right?
Eats. I think Bolt does, and then Glovo does. They all do it now.
Yeah.
So you could, and that doesn't have to be just for
unless
condolences.
The delivery address is too far away.
Yeah, then that's difficult. But you could send. Yeah, that doesn't just have to be like for condolences. You could send
like
a loved one.
I'm sorry, bouquet of flowers.
I'm thinking about you, flowers.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get anything delivered
I'm sorry
nowadays.
for what I said last night.
I've not ever gotten those flowers. It's because Josh doesn't know how those things work.
I don't.
Yeah.
I make Kalie order it.
Yeah.
Kaylee, order yourself some flowers.
Yeah. Oh, if that's the norm, then
Put it
I can
on
do
our
it.
joint millennium account.
Yeah, I know, right? But speaking of flowers, our daughter recently, she's been really cute. One of her favorite holidays, she says, is Valentine's Day, and it's because boys give girls flowers. So Daddy better be stepping up for Valentine's Day, giving us flowers.
Yeah, Daddy, clean your shotgun.
Oh, gosh. How cute.
No. Okay, so we also want to give you an indication on what's kind of happening with our channels, because we have a lot going on and we do produce a lot of content. This past week we put out, it was this past week we put out the France country guide on Expats Everywhere Explores. So you can check that out. We'll put a link in the description for that. And then we have an interview coming up, as well as we have recently completed our 4 years living in Portugal. And we like to do a yearly review on how life has changed and what's going on for us. And so that video, we get pretty deep, gets a little emotional.
Josh maybe tears up a little bit.
And it's a fun one to share. So that one just came out. And yeah, we're glad to share that stuff with you. We have a few more episodes left in the podcast for this season. And then across all of our channels, we'll take like a couple 2-3 week break between the end of December, beginning of January.
Yep. And then I would say we are going to do a city guide on Toulouse, because you mentioned it being an underrated city. It's actually the 4th largest city in France by population.
Who knew?
And a lot of people have never even heard of it or don't know much about it. So we will explore, and on Expats Everywhere Explores, we will put a city guide out there. So we're excited about that.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like I had one more thing to say. Oh, yes. Because of the support that we have on Patreon, and then also from sponsors of the podcast, we are preparing to buy better gear. We've actually just bought a piece of equipment, a Rodecaster Pro 2.
It's like a little toy for Josh.
Yes, but we can't make it fully operational yet because we don't have all the other things that need to attach to it. We will soon have 2 different mics, which will be lovely. So we're not like hunched over the mic trying to get closer so that we can speak and share the mic. So we'll have 2 separate mics, and that'll be wonderful. And hopefully we'll just look more professional.
More professional. That's what we're going for. Hopefully we sound better too.
Yeah. Okay. So a little more about this chat that we had with Anita. We go through different foods that you eat during the holidays, different etiquette not different etiquette, but the etiquette that you should be aware of as a foreigner visiting a Portuguese home. It might not happen in year 1 for you that you're going to be invited into a Portuguese house, but over the coming years of you living in Portugal, it should likely happen, unless you're doing kind of your own thing in your own expat community, which is totally fine. Like no judgment there, because everyone likes to celebrate the holidays like they like to celebrate them.
Yeah.
But we talk about typical gifts and things that you would bring to, those types of gatherings. And
all really good info to know.
Really good.
Really helpful.
And it's a little different from north to south. So we do talk about that.
Yeah, that's cool.
So
let's get to it.
Let's do it. All right, before we get started, I would like to talk about this week's sponsor, Green Ocean Global Advisors.
Right. We always recommend, no matter where you are in your moving process, to get your finances in order, because it's important to see what finances look like at home, in your home country, and then wherever you're moving to.
And speaking about home, what if you sell your home before moving or do it after? Well, a financial advisor will be able to guide you in this process and let you know what some of the capital gains might be like on the sale of that property.
Or what about distributions? Maybe you have a 401k or pension, and so how much do you really need to live in your new country, your new lifestyle, right?
That's exactly right. And John with Green Ocean Global Advisors is willing to meet with you to talk to you about your plan. He's actually given us a dedicated link for a free 15-minute consultation. John, thank you for that. So that you can meet with him and ask him whatever questions have popped into your mind and see if he's the right fit for someone that you would like to work with.
Now on to the show.
Anita, thank you so much for joining us today as we discuss a topic that is very fun. We're going to chat about Christmas and what Christmas is like in Portugal. And I really hope, as I'm entering my fifth Christmas here in Portugal, that I'm able to learn better how to kind of behave during the holiday season. and not make any faux pas mistakes that I'm sure I've made in the past. So Anita, thank you so much for joining us. How you doing?
It's a pleasure to be here, Josh. So, hola, and thank you so much for bringing me here today. So, basically, two main things about Christmas. All you have to do is to eat and to be with your family. So, food and family are the two main things about Christmas in Portugal. You know, it's the culture. We love to eat and love to be surrounded with our loved ones. So, I think it's a super combination. Very
Okay.
traditional.
Awesome. Okay, so we're gonna dive more into that, but in the U.S., we start holiday season around Halloween, and then it rolls into Thanksgiving, and then
Hmm.
some people don't even like to discuss Christmas until Black Friday or after Thanksgiving, and some people traditionally put up decorations during Thanksgiving weekend. What's it like here in Portugal?
Well, to be honest, the official date should be because again, it's the Portuguese culture. Should be the 1st of December because it's normally a public holiday that starts officially the holiday season. But due to these, uh, how can I say, shopping center, things like that, we seeing more and more offers of get your Christmas tree, get your decorations, Christmas music starting in November. Some people already started to put the Christmas tree up on November as well. But traditionally, our Portuguese culture calendar says that it should be the 1st of December. And then you start to plan your Christmas gifts list and everything around it. So it's a magic season, I must say. We all get into this Christmas spirit, starting in that time. So you start way earlier in the States, so that's fun.
Yeah, I think part of it is a product of commercialism, to be honest, right? Because we do have the famed Black Friday, which became like Black Week, which in Portugal is like Black Month,
Yeah.
where you have like, the whole month there are sales going on to kind of get people into the shopping season, if
Yes.
you will. But yeah, I think in the States we certainly have a culture of going from holiday to holiday during this time of year because there are four holidays essentially between October and the beginning of the year, so people enjoy celebrating it. What's the holiday that is December 1st here in Portugal?
It's I think it's the 1st of December. You have two. You have the 1st of December, and you
Hmm.
have the let me check. I think it's the 8th of December, which is right the following week. And these two holidays, they used to be the first one. It starts uh, basically it has nothing to do with religion. It has to do
Okay, I was
with
gonna
the
ask.
independence of Portugal. The
Okay.
second one on the 8th of December, it is the Immaculada Conceição. So once again, it's
Okay.
a religious one.
Yeah.
So it's when you start the saint season officially.
Okay. Okay, so that would be like the Immaculate Conception. That's the
Something like that.
translation. Okay.
Immaculada Conceição. Yeah, it's difficult to
Okay.
say Immaculada Conceição.
Immaculada Conceição.
I'm always
Is
scared
that
of
okay?
messing up the names of the holidays because there's saints for everything in Portugal. We are very religious around here,
Yes.
especially in the center and the north of Portugal.
So tell me, how do people greet each other in Portuguese? You're a Portuguese teacher. So what are some tips on how we should greet each other or greet like a shopkeeper when we walk in or our Portuguese friends out on the streets? Like what should we say
Hmm.
during the holiday season? Because there are a few
So,
different ways to say happy holidays.
well, there's something about the Portuguese culture you should know before you move to Portugal is that we have always two options of addressing people. Normally, if you don't know the person, it can be kind of very formal. Um, because again, it's something in in our culture or in our DNA or almost. But if you are with your friends, you are super informal with the language. So it's completely different visions and perspectives of the language. But I would say that if in case you have any doubt on how to treat someone, always use the formal version.
Okay.
Especially with the elderly. So it's something that normally language is strictly associated to education in a way of politeness in Portugal. So if you want to sound very polite, you would say "Olá, como está? How are you?" Very formally. "Como
Mm,
está?" would be the most general and formal concept of saying something like, "Hey, how are you?"
mm-hmm.
And but if you
Instead of
are
just saying to the bang?
to yeah, well, you can,
Okay.
but
Okay.
again, be careful with that.
Okay.
You do that with your friends, people who you are comfortable with, your colleagues at work, etc., or in a shop. But for
Mm.
example, if you're talking to someone who's way older than you, I would say "Olá,
Como
tudo
está?
tudo bem?" But like, "Como está?"
Como
Como
está?
está?
Okay.
Ou como está o senhor? Like, how are you, sir? Or a
Yeah.
senhora if you're talking to a lady. If you want to sound super formal, super nice and elegant, that would be the way.
Okay. So we walk into a shop and it's getting close to Christmas and we want to say like Happy Holidays or Merry Christmas.
Oh,
What do we say?
boas festas.
Okay, Boas Festas.
Festas also translates to party. So, but it's the equivalent in this concept is the equivalent to something like season greetings.
Okay, season greetings, and then
Yeah.
to wish someone a Merry Christmas,
Feliz Natal.
Feliz Natal. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Are there any other things that are kind of said during the holiday season that we should be aware of?
Well, you have Feliz Natal, you have Bom Natal, you
Okay.
have the Boas Festas, like I mentioned. I would say those are the top three ones to wish someone a Merry Christmas, season greetings, etc.
Mm,
There are people who also use the word saint, like as an adjective.
okay.
Santo Natal, like have a saint Christmas, like a blessed
Like a
Christmas.
holy Chris.
It's
Okay. Okay.
exactly. Like it's very common in the north of Portugal, especially, and
Mm.
in the center, perhaps a little bit as well, because it's where people are more religious and they use this type of language more often.
Okay. So I do want to discuss that. You're based in Algarve,
In the
and
in the
I
south, yeah.
and I'm in the north in Porto. And you spoke earlier about how the two main things for a Portuguese Christmas celebration would be food and family.
Family.
So,
Yes.
what are the differences, I guess, between the regions that you know of? Like, do people actually celebrate it differently? Are there different types of foods that are eaten? What's that like?
Yes. I can feel that, for example, in the north, people are more like into meat, like the cabrito assado, like the goat,
I
like
love
in
it.
the oven, and as well the lamb, borrego. But as well the codfish, because these that I'm mentioning are normally dishes that are very, very traditional in during Christmas time, and especially Christmas Eve. And but all over the place you have the bacalhau that comes from our history. You know, the bacalhau that, after all, it's not Portuguese; it's from Norway, right? But it ends
Yeah.
up being something so traditional in this in our culture. You have the bacalhau all over the place. And then here in the south where I live, you also have the octopus. I'm not sure if people do that in the north as much as we do it here during Christmas time, but it's quite common to replace the bacalhau with octopus here as well. So I would say those are the biggest differences. I also see many differences regarding the desserts and the sweets.
Okay.
Yeah, like for example, in the north, it's normally uh, richer or filled with more cream and more things and even more.
Mm,
And here in the south, I don't know if it has to do a relation here with the weather conditions as well, and the
maybe.
influences that we suffered along the history as well, of course, because Portugal, it's a very small country, but just moving from one city to the other, sometimes you already see the differences in the food, architecture, culture, etc. Right? So everywhere. So I see many differences in particularly in the sweets, in the type of things we do. For example, I was born and raised in Alentejo coast, and with my granny, our Christmas tradition, I can still see it. I was only, I don't know, 6, 7 years old, 8 years old, and so, and I can still see us doing together in the table these fried things. We fry a lot of things during Christmas. I don't know if you ever seen the asvias, super traditional. They are filled with sweet potato cream and also with chickpea cream as well. Very rich and very traditional in the Alentejo and the Algarve area.
Mm.
So yeah, and we also do it with pumpkin. We call it sonhos de abóbora, pumpkin dreams.
Okay.
So
I
everything
like that
fried
name.
in oil, like, So those were, I would say, the most common sweets that, I grew up seeing people in the south doing. And here where I live in the Algarve, people do the same. It's more or less the same recipes, let's call it this way. But if I go up in the north, I see more choices of cakes and all of these pastries as well,
Mm.
especially in the center of Portugal, where everything was done. Well, it comes from the nuns' time, with the eggs, filled with eggs, like ovos moles, doce de ovos, right? So egg
Yes.
filling, um, which I love, by the way. I'm glad it's not so common here. I would not be slim anymore.
Our daughter Valencia loves ovos. Like whenever we
It's
go to the
so
grocery
it's so good.
store and we're queuing up to exit, there's a case, like a
Yes,
refrigerator case, and they're sitting right there. Every time that she sees it, she's like, "Can I
pure
get a treat? Can I get
marketing. They should
ovos?"
have it there.
Oh, it's so bad. Well, it's funny because Kalie and I aren't really fans of ovos, but we end up getting a pack because they come in like 12, and we end up having to eat a few, otherwise they go bad. So yeah, I'd rather it be pastel de nata, but anyways.
It's
Okay,
super
so
nice.
what I'm hearing is that the top recommendation is because there's a lot of fried food is to go visit your cardiologist before holiday season, right? So you don't get
You
in trouble.
or you should sign up for the gym first. Hire a
Okay.
personal trainer.
Yeah. So we won't even like get into the New Year's resolutions. We'll just go ahead and sign up for the gym before holiday season starts.
But luckily, if you live in Portugal, you always have a bit of sunlight to go for some jogging and
Yeah.
recovering that,
Yeah. Yeah. At
be fit
least
again.
at least a brisk walk, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So you spoke about the food, and then let's take a
Hmm.
look at like kind of the family and friends dynamic, because I think in the States it's a little bit of a mix. I mean, obviously holidays are generally spent with family, but also it's a time for friends to gather as well. And
As
I'm
well.
curious to know if it's the same way in Portugal, and then on what day do those things happen? Like, is Christmas just reserved to be with family, and you don't really see friends much, and friends
Mostly.
will see each other on New
Hmm.
Year's Eve, on Christmas Eve?
And
Like, what's it
Christmas Eve.
like? Yeah,
Basically, we have, well, things are changing, of course. This is not like, we we are in a modern society now, so basically you can do
yeah,
whatever you want. But in a more conservative point of view,
mm,
Christmas should be only for family. In the
okay,
perspective, well, of course, come on, I don't want to sound strict. It's just
no,
like,
no,
generally speaking, you know what I mean, right? So basically, we start, our first celebration happens on the 24th in the evening. We go together for dinner. Normally, it's with our grandparents, like from both sides, your mother and your father's grandparents, sorry, parents. And then, all the family gather together. We have dinner. We call it Noite de Consoada, and that's where normally we eat some of those dishes I mentioned earlier,
yeah,
like the bacalhau cozido, so the codfish with the potatoes, with the cabbage, carrots, everything, all the vegetables, or the octopus in some areas, or the cabrito asado, I think it's more in the center, if I'm not wrong. And you also have the borrego, etc. So it's a bit of, family time. We have all of this food, like a lot of food. Those photos that sometimes we see on social media with a big Portuguese table filled with plates and desserts and all of that. We normally cook like for the whole day before this evening happens. So we
Okay.
have a table full of desserts. It's like a wedding. Let's put it this way.
Okay.
So we have normally like this amount of food. People are together, and then normally there are it depends from family to family. In my family, we couldn't wait. It was just like for the next morning. We were so excited, especially my sister, as she's younger, and she was a troublemaker. So she would like, I want the presents. So either you wait for midnight if you can if you can keep your kids awake. So you unwrap all the presents. We have this baby Jesus thing because of the Christian religion. So on your fireplace, you have all the, the stockings. Is that how you call it?
Yeah.
Like
Stockings. Uh-huh. Yeah.
stockings, sorry, where you put the presents. So I grew up like this. Like my parents would put the presents there. There were no Santa story behind it before. Santa, it's
Okay.
more of a modern thing now.
Hmm.
So we would say if you are a good girl, you will receive presents from Jesus. If you're a good boy, you will receive presents from Jesus, and you will put it in the fireplace. So that is the real story behind Christmas, because Christmas, Jesus was born, etc., etc. You would make these. That was something I loved to do with my grandfather. This nativity scene, we call it presépio, with the baby Jesus, the parents, with the three wise men, with the goats, the donkey, the cow, everyone there with
Yeah.
Jesus. Like it's very common, and there are some contests happening in the center of Portugal sometimes. It's really nice. In some small villages, people still do that a lot next to the churches. And then for the ones who live in the more conservative areas, you go to the midnight mass that we call Missa do Galo. So it's a celebration mass again for the Jesus was born, so everything has to do with the religion. But again, times are changing. This is more in conservative areas, of course. And then for the families who prefer to wait for the next morning, kids would go to the fireplace to get their presents from the stockings again. Normally, first thing is they waking up, all the unwrapping, all the excitement. And then for lunch, you should, on the 25th, you should still meet with your family so you can eat the leftovers from the previous night, etc.,
Okay.
etc. So it's still very, how can I say, celebrated day on Christmas Day. You wear your best clothes, your fancy clothes, and we go together for a walk after lunchtime. But again, it's not really something that was brought up from history and from Christian religion that we should be together as a family with your grandparents, and yeah, basically. And these days, you see people like modern couples that unfortunately sometimes cannot travel to their families because either they move to the big city or something, and they just spend it with friends. So I do that a lot with my partner. For example, if for some reason he's working the next morning and we can't travel far to see my parents or his mother, etc., so we just go to my best friend's house and we eat together, and yeah, we
So
celebrate together.
is there maybe more of let's say conservatism with the older generation? They're more like
Yeah.
they put more pressure to stay as a family unit versus younger people are kind of feeling a little more liberal to just do their own
Yeah, to
thing,
choose
plan their life their
whoever
own
they
way.
want to be with. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. It's
You were
more common
talking
to see that.
Okay, so you were talking earlier about preparing all of this food and having this huge spread of food. Who's responsible for that? Is it still like the grandma's responsibility, or do other family members bring dishes or help with the cooking? Who does it?
Normally, it's the ladies. So,
It is. Okay.
there's these how can I say, Portuguese mothers and Portuguese grandmothers are very, known for being very caring. They are,
Mm.
how do you say, caretakers from the whole
Yes.
family. They do everything. But unfortunately, again, and I think, and I say unfortunately because we have less and less time to do these things these days because
Mm.
you have a career, you are a mother, we have so many things to do,
Mm.
and that it's more common just to, bring something already when you're coming to join us, like bring a dessert or bring the wine or,
Okay.
that type of thing as well. Or you just buy it already made. More and more pastries prepare themselves for, high demand in the orders at this time
Yeah.
of the year. Like, for example, the bolo rei, the famous king
Yes.
cake.
Yes.
Like you see the high demand. Everyone brings a king cake instead of baking it already because there's no time. People are rushing because of they're having busy lives.
Yeah.
But normally, if I go, for example, to my mother's house, I know she prepares everything because she's still in that generation where they do every single thing and they know how to do it. And that's the thing. The magic of the thing is that they do it like, they've done it all their lives. It's like they have magic fingers for, to cook those things that are so nice and yummy that reminds us of our childhood.
That's awesome. Okay, so one thing I wanted to ask was about the location of these celebrations. Does it tend to be at the oldest family member's home, like the oldest surviving family member, or is it like whoever has the biggest house or the most central house, or what's that like?
Some families do it in turns, and some families do
Okay,
it like you said, like with the biggest house, the biggest space for everyone to be together. In my particular case, it used to be one year in my granny's house, and she would invite my mother's sister, so my aunt, my uncle, my cousin. I knew I was going to meet everyone in those days, like super exciting. And then it started to be in my parents' house, as my granny, of course, she was getting older. She couldn't cook so much anymore. So we would bring them to our house. And I think that's pretty common too these days as well. I can see that happening as well. And there's always this appeal in Portugal for this time of the year for people to be a bit more sensitive because there are many elderly that are left on their own because the
yeah,
children moved to other countries or to a bigger city to find a better life. And sometimes they're left on their own, and it's quite sad. So there's always a lot of appealing on social media, on the TV as well, on all the media for these type of situations because people feel very depressed as once again it's part of who we are and people feel like, oh, I was left alone. It means
uh-huh.
nobody cares about me, because kind of touches people's souls those dates.
For sure. Do families recognize like somebody has been left out, like a friend has been left out, and then they invite them
Mm-hmm.
over? Or okay, so
Yes,
that
some
happens.
they
Okay,
do. Yeah, that
yeah, okay.
happens.
Because I remember growing up, my mom's family is from a very small town, Colwood, West Virginia, and my grandmother was known to like kind of be one of the biggest hosts of people during the holiday season, especially around Christmas. And for sure, if there was a family or an elderly person that was left alone, they got
Yeah, my
invited.
mother would do that too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they got
so
invited
nice.
over. So we always had extended family that
Yeah.
weren't blood family, but they were family.
But it's so
That
nice, last year we've done the same because there was one of our friends who got divorced and he was
mm,
kind of depressed and
sure,
lonely because the kid was going to spend the Christmas with the mother and then, he was left alone. So we joined him to the party. So, that's it's the least you can do. Plus
for
it's
sure.
fun to like you have to share that amount of food, right? Come on,
You
let's
got
be
enough, yeah.
let's be honest.
Yeah. No, exactly, exactly. Okay, let's talk about gift giving. Uh,
Mhm.
Traditionally, what do people give each other for Christmas? And then I'm going to ask a question about what, as foreigners, we should do with our Portuguese friends. But first, let's talk about what do the Portuguese do among each other? What are kind of some of the typical gifts?
if you are just, for example, there's different categories, right? So if you are just like a neighbor, for example, but I like you and you're a nice neighbor, I would gift you with something like a cake, or if you are a lady, a Christmas plant, because there's this Christmas flower, the red one,
Uh-huh.
that it's beautiful. And
Very
it's
beautiful.
something we gift each other a lot. Like I normally buy it for my neighbors. Um, we are not very much like a card type of people, like writing
Okay.
cards, etc., as we used to be. But additionally, you can do that as well, to put a card together with a present. If it's your friend, we give them like, I don't know, I would say I buy all sorts of things to my friends, books, for example, experiences like a massage, or something nice for my friends to wear, for my girlfriends, right? But generally something symbolic, like a book, again, an experience, like, oh, there's a gift card for you to take your wife to this restaurant, or something like that, if you have the possibility to do that. Otherwise, a bottle of wine, like my partner does to his best friends, a good bottle of wine, Portuguese wine, it's always so nice. Or again, some sweets that are typical from this type of the year, something like that. Not, but again, food, it's normally the number one present. But back in history, it was more like for children only here in Portugal.
Okay.
You make children priority. And one of the things that my mother had as, how can I say, let's call it a little rule, was that we should only buy presents for the children, nothing else. So like this, you have food for the adults
Yeah.
and just one or two toys for the kids to open for Christmas. That's how she said, always said, that's how it should be. This is a tradition. And I'm like, oh, can I be a kid forever so I can get a present every time? But yes, we
Okay.
are very gifting, like we like to gift people. And it's very common to your neighbor if you are close to them. Of course, if you live in a big building where you just say hi, morning, etc., they don't expect you to gift them with anything. But
Okay.
if you have like a good relationship, that you walk your dog together, you normally, have some sort of interaction, bring them a flower, bottle of wine, some sweets, something symbolic, box of chocolate,
Okay.
always good.
Okay. Something symbolic. Okay. That's
Yeah.
good. You mentioned a good bottle of wine. What is a good bottle of wine to a Portuguese person? What does that mean?
Well, a Portuguese wine.
Okay.
A Portuguese wine. I don't drink alcohol, but I know from, listening to my father and my partner, because they both love wine, and they say the best wines are from Alentejo and from Douro region. So any
I
wine
would
from
agree with
Douro
that.
region or Alentejo would do.
Okay. So there's not necessarily a price or a brand that
No,
it would need to
no,
be. Okay.
no.
Just for the listener, use your discretion on what you believe a good bottle of wine is. And honestly, you could probably just pop into your local wine shop,
Yeah, yeah,
not
yeah,
just Pingo Dos, but
absolutely.
pop
It's
into your local
everywhere.
wine shop and
Yeah, yeah,
have a
yeah.
conversation with the store owner, manager, whoever's there about what a good bottle of wine is. I find in those scenarios, Portuguese to be very honest about the products that they
Yes.
sell. So they're not just going to try to sell you that 50 euro bottle of wine. They'll
No.
they'll say, hey, there's big value in this 7 euro bottle of wine right here. And then they'll tell you about the characteristics of it, and maybe the grape maker, and all, probably more information than you want to know. But definitely ask around versus maybe just going into Pingados or Continents and grabbing a bottle
and
there.
and try, yeah, and try to find out which is the best. So if you go to a garrafeira, it's the wine place that you should
Yep.
go to,
Bottle shop. Yep.
and they will explain you the origin of the grapes they use. They're very good. They're very knowledgeable about the wine. To be
Yeah.
honest, generally Portuguese people are very knowledgeable about wine. Generally, um,
Mm.
I think it's a very Portuguese thing.
Yeah.
especially the red wine. People love red wine. If you're not sure if you should buy white or red, go for the red. It's more common that people like the red better than the white wine.
Okay, that's a great tip.
Yeah.
Okay, so we touched on a couple of gifts that someone could give, and you said that if there's a neighbor that you are close with, someone that you like to
Hmm.
walk your dog with, whatever, you could give them a gift. What about some people that you've maybe befriended? Because I find this to be quite true with foreigners. Some of the first Portuguese that we befriend will be owners of establishments, whether it be restaurants or shops that we frequent, because they'll see us on a more regular basis. What about these people? And we just want to like kind of show some love. Like, should
Appreciation,
should we
yeah.
get them something? Should we
Box
write a
of
letter, a
chocolate,
card,
a
whatever, box of
card.
chocolate? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
When I don't know what to gift, a box of chocolate, it's always welcome. There's always someone in the family who loves chocolate.
Okay.
So it's always a good gift. That's why you're gonna see the supermarkets filled with options of chocolates to pick during Christmas season. So yeah,
Mm.
it's always a good option.
Is there okay, so money can be quite sensitive. And I have two
Yes,
questions I want to ask. So money can be quite sensitive, and um I think that we want to be careful not to like step on anybody's toes or like put ourselves in a
exactly.
position above someone else. So my first question is it ever okay to give cash as a gift in a card or a
If
gift card?
that's your child, or if that's your nephew, niece, etc., someone very close to you, or your best friend's child, you
Mm,
could do that. Like, oh, I didn't have time to pick your present, so pick it for me. Here's some money for you. You
mm,
know, you can do that. But to adults, I don't really suggest. It's not very, I don't know. It can be misunderstood. Let's put it this
okay.
way. Unless you're very
Okay.
close, of course, and
Mm,
you say honestly, look, I want to gift you, but unfortunately I didn't have the opportunity to look for something. There you
yeah.
go, some money. Well, but I would say it's when you're very personal with the person, very like my father does that because he's like very I didn't have the time, so I won't bother. That's 50 euros, or you know what I mean?
Yes.
But or I do that with our nephews, as some of them are already like teenagers, and we like, oh, we're not gonna give them books again or games. They're gonna just not even open it. So
Yeah.
we're gifting them a card with some money inside. But they close to us, you know what I mean, right? And they
Yeah.
kids, so it's totally okay. And they expect you to do that. They prefer you to do that, honestly, because they're like,
Okay.
oh, I'm gonna save this and I'm gonna
Cash.
buy whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think kids in the States have become that way as well, at least some of them.
Yeah.
The older they get, for sure. Yeah, we were in a situation last year where for I guess the previous years, my wife and I had given a gift to our daughter's teacher and the assistant teacher of her class. And we kind of reflected on we used to be teachers as well. We were international school teachers, and in Singapore, I guess because the affluency of
Yes.
the parents that were there, you would get like some pretty big gifts, right? Um, so sometimes they would actually just give a gift card or cash with a card, like with a note, handwritten note, specific details, not just like Merry Christmas, here's $50. So this past year, my wife and I decided to give our daughter's teachers cash, and we left them a note as well. And it, at least, face to face, it was received really well. Like they were super
Okay.
thankful. But the idea behind it
But it's not
was,
common.
it's not common, no. But the idea
No.
behind it was in our mind, like, we do not want to buy these poor ladies more chocolates. Like they've probably received 10 boxes of chocolates from,
True.
the other parents
We did.
because that's the go-to gift, right? So we wrote a note like, go out, like enjoy a nice meal, whatever. Here's some cash to do that. Go to your favorite restaurant. But
Buy her a
okay, so that
massage in a spa. Buy her
okay,
an experience, something like
okay,
that. That would be
perfect.
like, okay, I do appreciate what you do for my kid. I know it's stressful, so there you go. Something for you to relax. if you're not sure if you should give her cash again, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Buy her a massage, a facial, something you know that she would be looking forward to enjoy, like exceptionally. I would
Okay.
do that if it was me. When
Okay.
I was in international schools and in public schools as well, it's very common that people bring you, like you said, chocolate. So it got to a point sometimes that I had to share my chocolates with my friends because people, everyone's okay. So let's give her chocolates. Flowers are nice as well, but I like flowers. I'm very suspicious when I say this.
Okay.
Flowers, books, clothes as well, jewelry, piece of jewelry like a nice Pandora thing, something like that. It's quite meaningful because she's gonna look at that and she know, oh, so these were Josh and whatever your wife's name
Kalie.
is
Yeah.
that gifted to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's nice. So of course, but again, it's not common that people give us cash for
Okay.
as yeah. But
Okay.
yeah, if
Great
she
tip.
received it well, so that's great.
Well, I mean, like I said, she received it well, kind of that face to face, obviously we
Yeah.
don't know like behind the veil how she was feeling, but it
If
seemed
she
like she
didn't take it
received it
as
really
a
well.
bribe, I'm joking.
Listen, they don't get grades. Not at this age. They don't get grades.
I know, but
Okay. So the second part of my question would be then is there like a monetary value that someone would spend that would be like over the top? Because it's like the friend would say like feel like, well, I could never give a gift back that would be on par with this. Like, is that a problem? Is there pressure for that? Is there even
a bit.
pressure if you receive a gift from someone to then return and go out, scramble and get them a gift?
uh, what can I say, Josh? Basically, Portuguese people, they have low salaries, right? The
Mm,
um, the standard salary here, it's very low. So I would not say that people expect you to spend a lot of money on a gift.
mm.
And but how can I say this? I'm very suspicious because I have a small circle, for example, telling from my experience, because it's of course every case is a different scenario. Um, I have a small circle. I have two best friends, and then um, everyone else they receive a card or chocolate. But
Okay.
for my best friends, I try to it's not a question about the value of the present. It's more the price of the present. It's more about the value. Like I give them a spa day or a nice treatment or a small trip to a place. I don't spend normally more than 50 or 60 euros.
Okay.
So the pressure from their side, it's not big as well. So if they bought me something smaller, like, I don't know, a scarf or something like that, they don't feel bad about it.
Got it.
You know what I mean? So
Yep.
I try to not to be, to spoil them too much, as so they don't feel they should do the same for me
Okay.
if they can't for some reason. You know what I mean? Uh, but again, it has to do a lot with um, everyone's opportunity to, of course, money opportunity as well.
Yeah.
But again, generally speaking, Portuguese people they buy something that makes them feel that they are appreciated, but not a huge thing, not a big money present.
Okay.
I would say.
What advice do you have for a foreigner who is invited to a Portuguese person's house during the holiday season? What are some of the norms? What are some of the do's and don'ts? Should they bring a gift like a bottle of wine or flowers or something to present to the host?
First thing, don't eat for 2 days before you go there.
Okay.
But yeah, be prepared to experience a lot of nice flavors. And yeah, Portuguese people are very pushy with the food. It's like if you
Mm,
don't eat, it's because you don't like it. So
okay.
they're going to push you a little bit. So make sure you're not going full already. So you have some space to try. And because for us, it's something nice. We love to share. It's something very Portuguese. When we open the door of our house to someone, it's because we like you. We want you to make part of our circle. We are very welcoming. If we invite you, it's already like you're part of us already. So
Cool.
if you come to our house, we want you to try our food. I suggest you take something with you. I would take, again, a bottle of wine at least, or buy a bolo rei, the cake king, and take it. I always ask, what should I bring? This is
Okay.
something I normally do when I'm invited, not just for Christmas, but generally. What do you want me to prepare? What should I take? And then if the person says, oh, no, nothing, just come around. So I would still bring something, still.
Yes.
That's my
Yes.
number one rule. I always take something, even if it's just, again, a bottle of wine, or I pop up in the pastry shop and I grab a nice dessert, an extra dessert, etc. But I bring it so I can have something to share with them as well. And so be ready to eat a lot, to drink. We love to drink. We love to laugh. We like to talk about football. So don't take our jokes about football personally. So everything is about football in Portugal and Cristiano Ronaldo. So if it's a traditional family, for sure the topic will come, the football. What else? We like to, just to be together and talk around the table. It's something we do a lot. It's like we don't finish food and we go somewhere else. We normally stay around the table chatting, sometimes playing cards, playing games, telling jokes, the anedotas, the famous jokes. It's something very, very common around here. So feel ready to have a good time. That's basically my best advice, is go with an open mind and an open stomach.
Okay. Open mind, empty stomach.
Yeah,
So should people take their shoes off when they enter a house?
it depends. It
Okay.
depends. I've been to many places where people say, "Oh, no, 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 don't think about it. No, just come in, come in." But in my family, for example, we normally leave the shoes outside.
Outside. Okay.
Yeah, I would
And
ask.
you would ask,
Or
okay. And
see if there are
if
shoes
there's a pile
like
of shoes by the
outside.
door.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
you have to. But normally we have slippers for the guests, so that's
Okay.
fine. So
Okay.
you will feel it.
And then what about like when do you start eating? Do you wait for everyone to get their plates? Do you like how does that usually work?
You feel it as well. Normally there's someone who say, "Oh, let's eat," and you start to, to serve yourself, or someone else is serving you. Normally the woman is the provider. Like we like to serve, like the host
Mm,
likes to serve the guests. If that doesn't happen and you see that everyone is doing it by themselves, you just copy the rest, and you go with the flow. But normally you feel it from the moment everyone has their food on the plates. We say bon appetit. So it's let's go, it's we're ready to eat. So bon appetit, it's normally the start of the fun. And
nice.
be ready to have a glass always being filled with that wine. All the time.
Well, what about for people that don't drink? Because you said that you don't drink,
No, I
and
don't. I feel a big pressure.
we've heard that it's not customary to cheers with a glass of water. So what do you do in that case?
I drink the kids' drinks.
Okay. So you're having like
I
a juice
I
or
do the
a
toast with like any kind of juice that you have for the kids there, because people are very superstitious. Like, oh, you shouldn't toast with water. Well,
right.
these days I don't care so much, but I heard this all
Yeah.
of my life. Oh, you
Yeah.
can't toast with water. And I just have normally another side glass for some soda or some juice, orange
Yeah.
juice or anything, just for the toast. So I don't feel the pressure, because it's a big pressure not to drink in Portugal. People look at you like there's something wrong about you, like, oh, you have alcohol
Are
problems?
you okay? Yeah,
No, no,
yeah,
no, actually,
yeah.
no. And people are, so you have a disease? No, 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 it's just my choice, like
Are you
people don't
pregnant?
understand. Like, are you pregnant? Like all of
Yeah.
these questions come
Yeah.
around, like, no, it's just I simply chose. I don't like it. It's
Yeah.
just me, Even when
Yeah.
I was in a university student, it's very, traditional in Portugal that you get drunk and you go to all of these parties. And I was always the mother of them all, like driving them safely home, like taking
Yeah.
care of them. Oh yeah, so I was always the good one in that way, like taking care of the others when they were passing already.
That's funny. What do we say
Yeah.
when we cheers at
A
a
nossa,
festive
like
party?
to us, a
Hmm.
nossa ou saúde, health,
Okay.
saúde.
Okay. And you're going to be doing a workshop for our audience. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yes, of course. I can teach you really useful Portuguese there in our workshop. I've been teaching Portuguese as a foreign language for 19 years now, so
Okay.
nearly 2 decades. So most
Mm.
of my life, Josh. So basically, what I do in these workshops is to give you 1 hour where you can interact with me. Of course, it's still a lesson that it's virtual, but you can still interact with me and engage conversation and ask questions, etc. And basically, in the topics we are going to work on together, we're going to talk about linking words that you can use in your day-to-day life in Portugal, as well as some essential phrases to start your Portuguese, like, oh, I don't understand. Can you repeat, please? Can you help me? Basic stuff that can start helping you, and especially to give you the confidence that you need with the sounds, to feel confident when you are speaking to native speakers and to be understood. So yeah,
Awesome.
the start of everything.
Awesome. Well, we'll put the link for the sign up for that in the description section so people can join in with the workshop. Anita, thank you so much for explaining Portuguese Christmas to us. We really appreciate your time.
I thank you so much, and I do appreciate that you gave me the opportunity to be here today. And I was a bit personal when I was explaining that. I had to use my example, so I hope it's useful for you guys to
No,
have an idea how Portuguese people feel this time of the year.
no, absolutely. It's great to get to know you better and hear your personal stories. That's why we do podcasts like this. So we thank you so much.
Thank you, Josh. Obrigada.
Obrigado. Ciao.
Ciao.